May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment, is now on the air. May I have your attention, please? The podcast World Awakenings is now on the air.
This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
We welcome you to the World Awakenings podcast. Before we start, we'd like to tell you about a special ebook written by the show's host, Carl Gruber. The 3 Pillars, a simple 3-step process to manifest positive and permanent change in your life. The concise 32-page 3 Pillars ebook will teach you how to become a successful and consistent co-creator of your life path with the law of attraction. Yes, you can manifest the life you truly desire, and the ebook is absolutely free. Simply go to Carl's website, carlgruberlifecoach.com. That's KARLGRUBER lifecoach.com. Click on the header title About Me and get the free download today. Carl Gruber's free ebook, The 3 Pillars, will positively change your life.
Hey, my friends, welcome once again to my World Awakenings, the Fast Track to Enlightenment podcast. I'm your host, Carl Gruber. This is episode number 55 on my journey to discover why now more than ever the people of the world are awakening to all things spiritual, enlightening, and metaphysical. A journey in which we have chatted with some of the greatest teachers in the world of non-dualistic spirituality. We've also had some amazing trance channels who have allowed the master teachers and ascended masters to speak through them to you, my audience. Plus, numerous guest experts in the fields of law of attraction, Reiki, energy healing, astral travel, quantum physics, and much more. So let's head on over and meet our featured guest today. But first, please take a moment to click on that subscribe button below so that you never miss a single exciting episode of this show. And our guest on today's show is Amanda Monnier. There we go, Amanda Monnier, who had a special awakening about 6 years ago, which led her to transition from a career in law enforcement to holistic healing. She's an energy healer, mentor, author, podcaster, certified yoga teacher, creator of the Yin Yoga Recode method. And Amanda is passionate about empowering her clients to step into the embodiment of their true essence. I like this part. She's real, raw, authentic, and does not shy away from any topic. She calls herself a new earth visionary. So welcome, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Carl, for having me. I'm just honored and grateful to be here with you today.
Real, raw, and authentic. I like that. It doesn't get much better than that. You're in Southern California, and I'm in freezing Ohio, but, you know, the internet brought us together, as it does people from around the globe. So you have quite an interesting journey yourself, even as young as you are, and I hope you don't mind, you know, I'm going to jump right into this. From what I've read about you, you had a rough ride as a youngster where your parents divorced when you were really young. You manifested your emotional trauma from this deep in your subconscious. How did you overcome all of that? If you don't mind starting off with this, I like my audience to find out about my guests, where they're coming from.
Yeah, I don't mind at all. And I always say I'm an open book. Like, this journey can be very messy. It's beautiful, but it's messy. So yeah, I was about 6 years old and my parents split, and it was something that I took really, really hard. I was now that I know kind of I understand myself at a very deep level, but I am just so sensitive. I'm a very sensitive being and I feel things so deeply. And I just want to point out that it was all my perception of what was going on, right? So it was created these abandonment wounds and these stories about myself. It was all, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Like if my parents don't love me and if my dad leaves, like everyone else is going to leave. And so what I did was I put on this like shell and this costume and this layer of protection. And it wasn't just my parents splitting, but it was a variety of things growing up to where I had really protected myself and I had been wearing this costume that was basically like my belief system around it was my light is too bright. I'm too big. I'm too much for this, the people here. Like, I guess I just have to kind of conform to all the things because as a little girl, I would always sing and dance and just wanted to like be happy and, just kind of expand that to everybody else. And it was like, I saw everybody else around me was just so miserable. And so I kind of came to a point to where I was like, okay, well, maybe this is the way they do it here on earth. And so I really like kind of succumbed to these things that, the conditioning and the stories that I told myself and the emotions that were suppressed because as little children, like we often are not able to digest these large bouts of what we would describe as trauma or these dense emotions if we don't know what's going on and our family members are doing the best that they can, but they're in their unconscious programming, then it's like, well, as a child, you just kind of go into, well, I just need to go into protective mode. So the ego and the unconscious was just merely trying to keep me safe at that point. So I had, because of this experience, I had like it was, my body had been trying to get my attention for years and years. Like I had even adult acne up until about the last years when I really was able to shed those layers at the deepest level. So I had like lots of hip pain and back pain. It was all just tied to all of these things. And really what it came down to, it was the parts of me that didn't feel safe to be me, that didn't feel safe to speak my truth, that didn't feel safe to be like, this is all me, take it or leave it. Like, I'm not too much. And, I am, a unique expression of God, of source, and I can really just be here. And so it caused a lot of challenges growing up, and it caused me to be in a very like distorted masculine energy because it was how I stayed safe for that period of time when I didn't feel it was safe to be me and I didn't know how to navigate these things. So it even caused me, and it is all perfect, right? I just want everybody to know, like, wherever you're at right now, it's all perfect. It's all like, there's a lesson there, or maybe just even to, be aware of these things that are coming up. But it even caused me to manifest this job as a law enforcement officer, where I'm again, putting on a costume. I'm stepping into my masculine at a whole new level. So it definitely has been a journey for sure.
Wow. And, unfortunately, we all go through that conditioning as young children. All of our paradigms in our life are set pretty much by the time we're 7. And most of it is disempowering. And we spend the rest of our life coming out of that. I do have to ask you, you said you're very sensitive. So would you consider yourself an empath?
Yeah, I think I know that we as humans, we love to label things. So I would say I would probably fit into that, so to speak. Yeah. Like for example, like I can go into a room and I can feel the energy of the room. Like when I get there and I feel the energy, like if I'm working with clients, like I feel it in my body. And I really have to constantly be asking myself, one of the first questions that I've really kind of learned to ask myself is this mine? Did I create this? Because with everything going on and, all the people we come in contact with, it's like, I find myself very easily, picking up on others' energy. And for me, the longest time, because we're often told like to shield ourselves. And for me, that actually didn't work. So one thing that I have done is I actually set the intention to strengthen my field and to really connect to my higher self and God, and really set the intention to build and strengthen my field. So I'm not coming from that intention of, oh, I need to like not feel or make myself small. So that's been really helpful to me kind of navigating this journey as a very sensitive soul. And just, the things that come with being sensitive. And I actually, when in the past, I didn't look at it as so much of a gift. Now I'm like, it is a massive gift because I always know in my body how I'm feeling about something. It's just a yes or a no. And like, it's just so simple. And the things that, we're not taught as children. And that's why I'm actually so excited for these new paradigms that we're bringing in, because I feel that we're going to be able to actually guide and mentor children to really trust themselves and to not, I feel like we're kind of doing away with these templates of conditioning, because like the children, it's like, they are so sensitive. They're so sensitive. And like you mentioned, at around, age from in the womb to 7, it's like very highly programmable because of our brainwave state being in theta brainwave. So it's like we're little sponges picking up everything. It's like constant meditation.
That's actually the brainwave that is in play when in hypnosis. So basically, you're being hypnotized from age 0 to 7, which is pretty scary. But so my past guest and now a friend of mine from Vancouver, Canada, Rocky Krogfoss, is an energy healer, and we were talking about empaths. And empaths, until they start learning about their gift, they absorb that negative energy from people. They almost feel like it's their job, and then they go home and they just crash on the couch and just take an Advil or something. But you don't. It's their energy. You don't have to do it. You can feel it, but you don't have to absorb that. And that must be something you have to learn.
Yeah. And that has been a process for me too, because I love that you bring this up. It's so amazing how these things always come full circle. Because in the last month, I've really been bringing an awareness to this pattern in me that wants to fix it and wants everyone to love me and wants everybody to be happy. And so growing up throughout my journey, it was like, if someone was mad at me, even if I didn't do anything wrong, I would go in and try to alleviate that energy and try to fix it or say sorry, even if it wasn't something that I had done. And what I learned in this past month about that is that it's not my job to caretake for someone else's experience and what they're going through, because it does two things. So for me, it's allowing that energetic dumping onto me, which is going to in turn dim my light and not allow me to show up in my authenticity, because I'm carrying the weight of someone else's experience. And second, it's like I also am putting a stop to their experience of maybe a lesson that's there for them, because I'm going in and trying to save the day when maybe there would have been a process that they're going through. Right. To maybe work through something that is deeper than just the trigger that they're having from what they think, is being caused by me. So it's very interesting.
So you mentioned this too, and I find this pretty interesting. Quite a career switch, going from law enforcement to holistic healing. How did you end up in law enforcement, and what dawned on you where you needed to make a switch?
Yeah, it's so I did the college thing. I got a couple pieces of paper from there that said I knew what to do. Right. So, yeah. Right. And so I got a bachelor's degree in psychology and one in criminal justice. And going in, people were like, well, did you ever think you'd be a probation officer? And I was like, I didn't even know what that was. And it was all a beautiful part of my experience. So I would never go back and change it or anything. But out of college, I did 1 year as a school counselor, kind of at an inner city school, which was a cool experience. And then I had put an application in for probation a year before that. And then I got a call and I wasn't expecting it, but I was like, oh, sure, I'll interview. Why not? And then I got the job. So yeah, I did that for about 6 years. It was about 2 years or so in that I had this awakening, if you will, this awakening in consciousness. And it was stemming from a very painful breakup that was the catalyst. I always say like my abandonment wound showed up in men. It was like same man, different face. Thank you. So this time there was no escaping it though. There was no escaping the pain. And it was always like, I just kind of always had felt this void that I filled through dating and just it was a relation to men because it was like it was all the experience related again, going back to my parents' divorce. And so at this point in time, when I had this awakening, it was like 2 weeks of just hiding inside my home to where this dense energy came up inside of me. And there was absolutely no escaping it this time. So that's kind of when I started my external search, later turned inward. But I had just kind of all the books I could get my hands on, like anything that could help me understand what was going on, because these experiences, like if we don't know and nobody in our inner circle is like, oh yeah, this is kind of like, maybe you'd call it a dark night of the soul, or, there's all kinds of different names we can call it. But it was just kind of confusing to me at first. And then I started down this path, and being in law enforcement, it was awkward at times because I hid in the spiritual closet for very, very long time. And people would always like say things like, I was just different and whatnot. But it was just a very interesting experience being in almost like literally being a character in the Matrix and going through this process of like, oh my gosh, this isn't real. This isn't real. Like, this isn't true. This isn't true. And so 2 years before I left, I knew that I wasn't going to be there as long as I thought I was going to do a whole career there. Yeah. And little did I know that the universe had other plans. So it was very, very humbling.
I think as we spiritually awaken, we start to realize the unreality of so much around us. This can't be real. It's too crazy. With that, I've seen that you've been quoted as saying, "I will remind you that you are incredibly powerful and hold space for you to heal through your own source connection. It's time to unleash your authentic soul frequency to the planet. New Earth is here, and we are creating the new paradigm through unity consciousness." There's a lot there in that statement. Would you be able to expand a little bit on this?
Yeah. So one thing that I have learned on my journey, and it can be anywhere, but can be very prevalent in the spiritual community where we have, the authority figures and the gurus and all this and that. And it's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Mm-hmm. And again, it can be, elsewhere, but it just, in my experience, it was just another sneaky way that I gave my power away and didn't trust myself and didn't, it was like, I would look to this person to give me the advice and wisdom and to tell me what to do. But at the end of the day, I actually heard my friend mention this word and I loved it. He refers to himself as even a healing facilitator. And I love the energy of that, because it's not about, and this is just my humble opinion. Like for me, it's not about going into someone's energy and making, manipulating energy and releasing all this stuff for them. It really is, to me, so important for people's healing to come through their own higher self, their own consciousness, and their own source connection. So I love to just set the intention to be that mirror and, this is what's coming through. And, how does that feel in your body and what are you experiencing? And sometimes we get really, really deep on stuff and, different information will come through and it'll just kind of take us down a beautiful path. Like I was doing a healing the other day with a client and, I was feeling this heaviness in the heart. And then we were in the healing and she was like, oh my gosh, like this has to do with my ex-husband. And it was like, where it went and what came up for her. And so we were able to just release this massive amount of heart wall and heart pain. And it was, it was a co-creative experience versus, sometimes we'll go get a reading or do these things. And it's like, we see that as truth when maybe it's just like a piece of the puzzle and we can take what resonates and leave the rest, because it really, truly, for me, I went on some twists and turns on my path by like putting other people as like this authority figure above my own inner truth and my own inner knowing. So that's something that I'm just beyond passionate about, helping people come back to their own light and their own truth, and whatever that experience is for them. And even in the healing piece, it's like, maybe it's not one size fits all. So maybe, meditation or a specific type of modality calls to you. Like that's all perfect, because we're all unique and we all have different experiences. So things that we might be called and guided to do are going to also be unique and different. So, and then kind of speaking to like that unique soul frequency, the way that I explain it is we are an extension of God. We're not separate from God. We're told from birth that you're separate and that you have to do X, Y, and Z to attain this thing. And you have to ask for all these things. And it's just also simply not true. Yeah. So it's just this beautiful thing when we come to the realization that there is no separation and that we are unique expression. So that we have individuality, but we're not separate in the sense that we're told. So when we can activate our innate essence and our innate wisdom and start to bring more of that online, that is just, it's uplifting for ourselves. And then it's also in turn, it is helping this expansion that we're experiencing on the planet right now.
So you mentioned working with a client. What type of person comes to you to work with you one-on-one?
It really depends. I've had a variety of different people. I feel that women tend to gravitate more towards this work, but I also feel that, there are a lot of men waking up. So it really just is, there's not necessarily one specific type of person. I've actually changed a lot of the way that I work in the last 6 months from another kind of dark night of the soul, expansive thing that I had going on. I hear a lot of people, even, the certifications and all these things, like I actually don't even really resonate with that anymore. For me, it's more about allowing something more expansive and bigger to come through me so that I can like hold space in this beautiful way. For me personally, I set the intention to connect straight to source. I mean, I've done like little bouts of channeling, but that's just not something that I've been guided to do. And so it's just been it's continued to change. That's why, like, I don't prep for sessions. I don't prep, before I do any type of like talks or anything like that, because then I'm coming more from that mind versus allowing what wants to come through and just kind of being the receiver. And that has been so powerful for me to learn to embody this ability to pause and to listen and to receive versus kind of like more linear analytical perspective, which I operated in so heavily in the past.
Well, that's interesting too. And I'll come to a talk or a coaching session. I generally have a little outline that I work with, kind of like this podcast, but like you, I've come more and more and more to just before I come on. I even did that before we started this podcast. Source, just work through me, speak through me, let me be your vehicle. And it's amazing. I write that way too. And I'll write something, I'll write a blog or I've got a book, and that type of thing. I go and I'll look at it later and go, I wrote that.
Don't you love when that happens? Oh my gosh. It's like a download for yourself and it activates and you're like, wait, it clearly was something coming through. That's really cool. I love that when that happens.
Well, and too, you mentioned something, and I was going to ask this later on, but I find this really interesting from what I do as a life coach and a podcaster, and now I'm the facilitator. You mentioned that word earlier. I'm the facilitator of a Power of 8 healing group on Facebook, and I have members from around the globe, but it's mostly women who are open to the idea of the new earth, new spirituality, enlightenment, and I don't know what it is with men. I mean, the divine feminine is blossoming like it has and has been suppressed for eons. And, I'm guessing that because of this, most of your clients are women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are. And it's interesting because I do feel so deeply there is something stirring up in the men, and I can't really explain it, quantify it. but it definitely feels like something has shifted on the planet. And
God, I hope so.
I do feel that way. And I feel that the veil on the planet is so thin right now. So the way that it's been shown to me is that those of us that have really been releasing the density, the lies, like we have like arrived to this beautiful place, not to say that there might not be more things that come up, but we've arrived to this beautiful place. And really it's just been like this journey home, and like home to self, home to like this oneness and this whole inner wholeness. And it's caused like the vibration of the planet to raise. And so it's caused like the thinning of this veil. And so it's like, we can't hide from our crap anymore. Mm-hmm. Like I can't tell you how many things in the last like 3 months that I've been guided and called. And I don't even know if the word demanded I'm hearing, but like almost like just told, like, you got to release this, you got to release this, you got to release this, because it's like when our yes is really a no, we're feeling that like so deeply. And it's like we're in a pressure cooker. If we're not in alignment at this point, we're feeling it on all levels. And even if it's something where we're not fully aware, it's still being felt. And so I do think that this is happening with a lot of the men. And I feel like a lot of the foundations for a lot of the templates that have been done through, kind of, I don't even know, people call it like the waves of people, but I think a lot of people who are in their, the consciousness and their awakening. And so I think it is kind of creating the space. And I really do feel good things coming. So I don't know.
Positive. But it is interesting. It is frustrating for me. I guess I grew up in an agnostic family. I had no religious dogmas pounded into my head, so I kind of had a blank slate to allow all this information to come to me. And I went through a long period of myself as a masculine chauvinist type of, because what else did I know? That's what I saw all around me. But I've allowed myself to blossom. But I do believe that men are still behind the curve on awakening to this. But you are right. There are far more. I have many, many brothers around the world who are light workers and healers and that type of thing. And it is interesting. My Power of 8 healing group, which is based on Lynn McTaggart's Power of 8 healing, where 8 or more people come together either live or virtually, and focus a healing on a person, place, or thing, some miracles happening. And it's been crazy. I mean, I've got people we just did a healing for somebody in Russia. And we had people from Ireland, England, South Africa, and the U.S., and Australia. We're on Austria. And it was amazing. So, but yeah, men, wake up. Let's get some more of you in here and start paying attention to this. But I'm going to go back to your energy healing. How did you come about to be an energy healer? Did that blossom from your being an empath, or do you do Reiki? Is it Reiki what you do?
It's not Reiki. And do you mind if there's something coming through like that we were talking about the masculine and the feminine. Do you mind if we
go
just real quick before I lose it?
Yeah.
I think part of what has happened is these inversion templates on the planet. So like, it's like the harden the feminine and soften the men has been something that has been very detrimental. And so even a part of my process has been really, really around embodying the feminine and in really being able to receive, because with these inversions that have happened, it's like the men are just kind of like, I don't know what to do, because there's, maybe when it I can see where it served its purpose for, the women rising up. Like, I don't even like to use the word patriarchy, but I think that part of what rectifies the situation is the women really stepping into their feminine and softening, and even in business and all of it, because that allows and opens the space for the men to be able to show up in that provision masculine energy, because it's been so inverted for so long to where I feel like I just see a lot of confusion and feel a lot of confusion, even like the men don't know how to show up, because we have these women that are like women lead and women this and women that, which I don't think there's anything. I don't even know if I like the like women lead. I don't know. It's just this might be triggering to some people, but I just feel so deeply that us as women that are awake, like really, really getting to that place where we are embodying our feminine more often than not. I know we have both polarities within, but it's just, I do feel that is also going to assist the men and support the men as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, women are allowing their personal power to blossom and show, and and men, just I actually think it's phenomenal. Like I said earlier, when I think about it, I mean, women have been suppressed for literally all of history of mankind, and it's time for the divine feminine to come back, and I just love it. And thank you for going on it. But so you're not doing Reiki, but you're doing a form of energy healing, and what is that based on?
Yeah. So I started all this kind of when it was a few years in after the awakening and all that. So like I had kind of mentioned earlier, I have a variety of different certifications and things like, one thing that I've learned is how to do like recode work, which is a lot of like, I guess, rewiring, if you will. But really what I've done is I have just taken the pieces that I love out of each one of those things. And again, like it's coming through me. So it's coming through something higher and more expansive. So I don't necessarily even have a name for it, but it is connecting to my higher self straight to source. And then if I'm working with a client, their higher self straight to source, and asking permission, because to me, permission is very important, asking permission for me to, connect with them and anything that is in their highest and greatest benefit. And also setting up like very sacred space and a very sacred channel, because there is so much going on. It's like, we don't have to be afraid of all the things, but I feel I've been in some situations to where I've had healing work done and sacred space wasn't created. And there have been like some kind of infiltration energies, because even if you mean well, but you're not setting up a session properly, I found it can be, it can kind of open things up when you're working at that level and you're working kind of like, not even necessarily out of body, but when we go into these healing spaces, it can kind of be, where we're in different dimensions and realms. So again, it can be so many different things. Like, I explain as like, time is not linear, as we have been told. And as we know it, as far as human constructs go. So we can actually go back into time and we can do what I would refer to as a change history. We can go back to different childhood events. We can be the observer. And again, I want to point out that it's wherever the person is at and whatever they're ready for. So we always hold space in the sense that we're not pushing it. We're not forcing it. It's how would we hold space for a child? So we can go back to those situations, because if it's still in the energy field, it's actually present in the now. So we can work with these energies and really allow and hold that sacred space for what was needed in that time for that inner child, or maybe it's even some ancestral stuff that got carried over. And its presence is so important when we're doing this work, because in my experience, whenever I've tried to like force it or sidestep it, or, it's not being present for what wants to show up. So it's even like, an emotion comes up, like I'm acknowledging the shame in my body and breathing into that shame and allowing that shame to be present rather than shaming the shame. Because we can even do that to where we're just like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Or, oh, well, like this and this happened. So, but it's like, well, if that's what's present, then can we just hold space and be okay with that being there? Can we be okay with that showing up? Even if it's, we think it shouldn't, can we just be with it and whatever that is? And so that's one of the most powerful things I found, is just being in the now, being present with what is showing up and not judging it and not trying to change it. Because even trying to change it is saying there's something wrong with it, saying we need to fix it. And it's being present allows that dissolving of the attachments to it, because we're shining a flashlight on it. We're seeing it for what it is, and we're not judging it.
Wow, this is so much beautiful information. You're really hooked up to source. I like it. So we are speaking to Amanda
Monnier,
That's like the Nebraska version of
the Nebraska version, the French version, Monnier, whatever.
You already just kind of hit on your recode method. So I guess you've developed something called Yin Yoga Recode Method. What is that?
It's so funny that you bring that up. And this is part of me being 100% authentic and raw. I was actually talking to one of my girlfriends today, and I was like, because I'm always like, it's like we like doing our 10 out of 10, like what is our absolute highest? And I was like, you know what? Teaching yin yoga isn't my highest anymore to be teaching it weekly. And so what I was doing, and I was infusing energy work and these practices into yoga to help, opening the body up and then moving through these things. And I was teaching weekly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of like actually going to shelf it until I'm guided and feel super expansive to teach it, because I do love it. And I have like clients that love it, but I was finding myself not excited to teach. And so I'm like, if I'm not super excited to teach, then okay, it's going to come through and what I'm doing. So actually I was supposed to teach yesterday, but instead of doing that, I was guided to do this, like, it was kind of like a guided journey, like healing, essence, embodiment activation, as I like to call it. And the clients on the call were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Can we do this more often? Because it was just in the moment, it was coming through. And so, yeah, to be completely real with you, I do still teach in yoga, but that, is not something that I'm being called to do like weekly now. I'm being called to do more of these essence activation kind of healing type things, and more intuition workshops. And I don't know if you've heard of the gene keys, but I am really learning about the gene keys, and it just is lighting my soul on fire. So
No, I have not. I haven't. There's so much to learn.
I know, right? And that's why it's so perfect, because it's like, I feel like it's like when we're ready for the next thing, it shows up and it's like, wow, okay. Like you can feel it in your soul and your heart and your whole body, that it's like perfect.
Well, another thing that I saw on your website, you mentioned something you called a divine blueprint. What is that?
So that would be what I would refer to as like our unique soul frequency and our unique soul essence. So we're each a beautiful piece of the puzzle of the whole, and we each have something like perfect to offer. And when we're embodying our essence and we're connected to our higher self, and we're connected to source, because God is within us and we're connected to this energy, then we're able to like emanate this beautiful piece of the puzzle. So it's like, for me, and it sounds like for you too, like we love to do podcasting, like it's something that lights us up. And so when we're in like our unique soul blueprint, our unique soul frequency, it sends ripple effects to the planet. So for example, the gene keys for me have been an additional kind of enhancement to kind of learning what my blueprint is. It's like, like a little compass has been placed in my hand, and I'm like, you have these aha moments. And so the soul blueprint are, the things that light your soul on fire. Like, what are you passionate about? And sometimes if you're like, oh, I don't know, you do know, but maybe going back to like when you were a child, like for me, it was singing and dancing. And what is it that lights you up? Maybe it's art. Maybe it's like playing with your dog. I don't know. It's so, what is unique to you that brings this light and essence online. And then the other piece is just letting go of all the things that aren't that, because all the things that aren't that, they are not true and they never were. It was just maybe the path of least resistance at the time. So we don't have to judge it. But when it shows up, we can acknowledge it. We can thank it for the lessons, and we can release it, and we can choose something else.
I think it's beautiful. At your young age, you've figured this out. I mean, some people go their entire lifetime never making these realizations. So anybody having an issue with that, Go to Amanda. She'll work with you on it. That's incredible. You know, I saw that you're quoted as saying, "Life is meant to be fun. We are here to be powerful creators." That means you must be a Esther Hicks and Abraham fan, because Abraham says that all the time. Life is supposed to be fun, and I love that.
I do love I went to an Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks like conference a couple years ago with one of my girlfriends, and it was really fun. Yeah. And again, it's like these things that find us on our journey. It's like almost like a little spark of like, okay, there's something for me here. And again, it's like, maybe it's just that little thing, or maybe it's for a month, or maybe it's for 5 years, but it's like, we can take what we need in that moment to really bring it online to what's true for us, because it's like, maybe it's 90% of that, maybe it's 5% of it, but it's just like allowing like those things to come through for us to where we're not putting it above ourselves, but we're integrating the parts that, bring something that is us more online. And it's just a completely different mindset. And it took me a while to realize that it was like kind of like that thing that I knew, but I didn't consciously embody it yet. And so it has been such a beautiful experience and a very like humbling journey to be able to come to this place to where, and actually one thing that I say, it's like the more that you bring more of your consciousness online, and the more you learn, it's like the more you actually don't know, the more you don't know.
Well, I don't know if you've ever read Gary Renard's book, The Disappearance of the Universe. He's one of the world's most well-known teachers of A Course in Miracles, the modern spiritual guide. And in that book, his ascended masters, Arten and Persa, said to Gary, don't take life so seriously. Life is too crazy to take it seriously. You have to laugh at it all, And, and speaking of that, I mean, with everything the craziness in the world right now, and this is one of the reasons I pulled this podcast together, that, the entire world is literally screaming the question, there has got to be something better than this. And that includes myself, which brings me to my show's main question that I ask almost all the guests. Why now, more than ever, are the people of the world awakening to all things enlightening, spiritual, and metaphysical? What's your take on that?
Oh, I love this question. I already feel this like question ringing in my body. So the way that I even explain what's going on right now, because I think that a lot of people are like, whoa, like the world is like imploding, like this is so bad. But I don't think it is. And I'm going to tell you why. So I feel like what's happening right now and what we're seeing is this collective dark night of the soul. And we're having these internal, because I label as dark night of the soul. I've had so many of them to where it's just like, I'm like, wow, I didn't think I could go any deeper into this, but okay, let's go along for the ride. So what's happening is we have the opportunity to see these distortions and to see the lies, and we see it on the main stage. I think we can agree that there's a lot of stuff going on where we're like, whoa, and some of it's actually kind of laughable. And so like, I love your take on it, because we can actually laugh about these things. I saw there was like a meme. I don't know if you've seen Step Brothers. It's one of my favorite comedies. Yeah. But they like basically like it's like their third eyes are open and they're like light workers come in here to F shit up. And so they're like, it's just this opportunity for us to really let go of all this density so that we can, because we can't build a foundation on the lies and the distortions for where we're headed. We have to allow all these things to release. And so it's the same like internally, and we may have these different like waves of where we feel this expansiveness, and then we have some other activation or trigger that comes up inside of us. It's like, okay, now it's time to take a look at this. And there is one, I don't know if you're familiar with Jason Estes, but
the name, but not too.
So, this might kind of help put it into perspective, because so right now, like the amount of everything is so sped up, the amount of light coming into the planet is exponentially increased. And he refers to it like we all have different labels. And sometimes I think we're talking about the same things just in our own language. but he calls them data points. So he had posted something, I think it was this morning or yesterday, that we've hit 7,000 data points and that just all this stuff is going on and all these new templates are coming in and all this stuff is falling away. And to put this into perspective, in the 90s, so this is 7,000 data points per day. So in the 90s, we were at 1 data point per day. 1. So if that gives any perspective onto how increased and sped up things are right now, I know for me, it's like, again, anything that is not in alignment has been fallen away, even down to like coaches, friends, that I've been guided to let go of and really just like accept what I'm being called to do, because it's like, we know deep down when it's time to release things. So to like fully kind of wrap up the question, I just think it is such a beautiful time to be alive right now. And part of, something that I have come to realize, it's like, sometimes I have felt in the past, like a little off and like, I'm not doing it right. And I'll say this, and for all of you listening, this could ring true for you too, because we're actually meant to create the new templates and the new paradigm. So we're the ones creating the map. We don't have a map. Like, we're channeling that information from our highest. We're creating the new paradigms around love and conscious parenting and, embodying our true essence and all the things, school education, conscious medicine, all these things that we are actually bringing the structures in, and we're creating this. So it's why sometimes things feel a little off, or you may feel a little lonely or out of place. Like, I've had these experiences to where I'm like, I couldn't do business in the old way, and it was cringeworthy to me. And so there were bouts of periods of time where we felt so stuck in my business because I was told that, oh, you have to do the marketing this way, or you have to talk to people this way. And it's all simply not true. Like, we are coming into this new age and this new time to where we're really just able to live from this place of heart and soul alignment. And so it's just, again, like, we're the ones creating it. So we don't have like an instruction manual, we're writing it.
Well, it's funny when you said this is really, right now is really a beautiful time to be alive. I could almost felt some of the listeners out there, really? No.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It is true. I mean, I've had this discussion with countless of my fellow life coaches and light workers. I mean, people like you and myself and everybody in the world has to step up. We have to raise our game, raise our level, and to bring more light and love and truth to overcome the collective global dark night of the soul that is going on right now. It's like nothing we've ever experienced during humankind history. And I've had a number of people. I actually did another podcast this morning with a gentleman from England. We were talking about how mankind is now ascending into 5D from 3D. I guess the Mayan calendar end in December 21st, 2012 was end of a 25,000 year period where mankind collectively has raised its vibrational energy and spiritual energy level. Of course, we didn't feel like there was this giant tsunami of energy, but it did happen. And it's an interesting time in human history.
Yeah, I feel that entirely. And when I hear people say, oh, I just want things to go back to normal, do you really? Or do we want things to be more expansive and more beautiful and be able to live from a place of our truth? Because the old system to me is just a modern day slave system, and we just didn't know it. It's just like, do we really want it to go back to normal? I don't.
Yeah, and the current dark forces behind what's going on, they want to keep that slave system in place. And
oh, yeah.
We ain't having it, baby.
No, we could get really esoteric here. I feel like we're on the same page. The people that have been controlling this planet. You could do a whole episode on that.
This is just awesome. So, we're talking to Amanda Monnier from Southern California, energy healer, just a yoga master. You've got all kinds of certifications, yoga instructor, and even a nutrition, allergy practitioner. This is just beautiful. I do want to mention that I noticed, I was on your website a little bit before this. I noticed that you offer a few gifts to people on your website that you used to charge for, but they're all free. And I personally, just a little while ago, downloaded your money meditation. So can you tell your viewers about that, how they can partake in that?
Yeah, I do have some gifts on my website. I'm actually, with this new expansiveness that I'm experiencing, I'm going to be putting some new meditations out on there. But I think there are 4 right now. I do have a little mini course. It's called Choose Abundant. So that one actually will direct you to Teachable, but that one is one of the gifts that will pop up. And then one I love is also the Inner Sovereignty and Freedom meditation. So that one's on there. So there's 4. Yeah. And then there's a money one, and I think an emotional recode, if I recall. I'm going to be adding some new ones on there too, pretty soon, because I'm being kind of guided to juice it up a little bit. But yeah, there's some stuff on there now.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love, I love being able to, give when I feel called at that space. And I just rebranded my entire podcast. So, that is one way that I give, and, the little things on my website. And so, yeah.
Well, I have to say, Amanda is a podcaster with an interesting name for this show. Up a level.
Oh, it changed.
You stopped me in time.
I changed it. I mean, we can say it, but I changed it.
Up level as fuck.
Yeah, that was actually the old one, and it no longer resonates. It's now called New Earth Visionary. So I was actually guided to delete everything and start from scratch, which, took me a minute to kind of get there, but I feel so good about the new energy I'm bringing to the podcast. So.
Oh, good. Well, that is just so awesome. There's so many beautiful podcasts. And like I said, I mean, this is just my passion and my way to bring this to the world, beautiful people like you. Before we get out of here, I have a question. Any books in the work, or are you busy enough doing what you're doing now?
It's so funny that you asked that. So I was actually working on a book last year, and it got paused because I was saying yes to things that were a no. So I was very blocked. But I'm actually so grateful that book didn't come through, because I don't think it's something I would have wanted to put out into the world. So I am going to be, this year at some point, I'm going to be picking that back up, because writing is one of the ways that I just absolutely love to express myself. So I have not gotten started on the framework. I wanted to get the podcast rebranded and everything. And I have a couple other things I'm working on, but there's definitely a book inside of me, or maybe a couple. So there will be some books in the future for sure.
I think I can tell that. That's why I kind of, yeah. Wow. Very cool. This is just so awesome talking to Amanda Monnier. Amanda, how can people connect with you? What's your website address, and they can do coaching with you?
Yeah. So Instagram, I hang out on Instagram, or my website, which is both are just my name, Amanda Monnier. And I do offer one-on-one sessions. I have 2 different offerings, and I have a group as well. So I show up weekly in the group. And so I've just been so guided to create like this sense of community. The group is fairly new. And just beautiful, sometimes it'll be a group healing, sometimes a breath work session, sometimes a meditation, but I do show up weekly live in the group. And then everything is kept in a online class. So if you can't make it, you'll have already it's already all archived. So all the classes get saved and everything. So that's one thing that I've just loved to do. So those are what I say, the ways you can contact me. And then, the freebies on the website, feel free to check those out too.
Wow, this is just so cool to have you on here. The light and the love shining through my computer screen here. I almost had to get sunglasses to put on. It's brilliant. This is just great.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
Well, and I'm going to have to get you on my Power of 8 Healing Facebook group. It is something special, and like I said, I don't consider myself like a great healer or anything. I'm just a facilitator, but from what I can tell, the whole world needs healing, and they just literally are clamoring to come on and be the focus of healing. But we heal places too. We did a healing for oh, you're crying. I'm sorry.
I know, because you're so sweet. I don't know. I feel all the love right now. I'm just so passionate about all this and just, what we're doing here. And I'm so grateful to have made this connection with you. And I've just met the most amazing, like soul sisters and brothers doing this. So I'm just so honored.
Some Kleenex and hug buddies.
I know. I don't even have any, like I'm getting soft in my, my 30s here.
Well, I'm a guy. We just use a shirt sleeve.
Oh yeah. No, that's good. Good idea.
So anyway, please, everybody connect with Amanda Monnier. She's amazing. And thank you, my beautiful friend, for being on the World Awakenings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So grateful. Thank you, everyone, for listening to our chat, too.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber, a certified Law of Attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in each and every episode of this podcast, World Awakenings, as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that all the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things metaphysical and spiritual, and just how they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment everyday life. Much love and light to you, my friend. Thank you for tuning in.